y'all watch the Tennessee Lady Vols last night? Tennessee moved to 5-0 as Kim Caldwell's team beat the Western Carolina Catamounts 102-50. That's the third time of their 5-game schedule that they scored over 100 points. In their last outing, they beat the Liberty Flames 109-93. Kim Caldwell came out and called out their defense, and they responded. They went off. Talasia Cooper was the star of the game. Talasia Cooper is 4 of 6, went 4 of 6 from 3. But and she had 20 points en route to that. Off the bench, Avery Strickland also went 2 of 2 from 3 and had 8 points. But the crazy part is Tennessee as a team only went 10 of 41 from 3, 24.4%. And they scored 102 points. How'd they do it? They forced 37 turnovers. Western Carolina went 2 of 12 from 3 because of Tennessee's elite perimeter defense, and Tennessee forced 37 turnovers. They had 17 steals. The story of all of this was Z Spearman, who had 11 points and 4 steals. She was 0 of 2 from 3, but it didn't matter. She could score so much in transition because she had 4 steals. Sarah Puckett was not good from 3, 0 of 5, and she's a typical shooter, but she still had 6 points thanks to her 3 steals. Ruby Whitehorn had 16 points because while she only had 1 steal, she and Samara Spencer, who had 11 points, were continually in position to make plays off turnovers forced by the Lady Vols. And then off the bench, Tess Darby, although she only went 2 of 9 from 3, she did have 12 points, and she had 2 steals. She benefited from transition. This team, guys, scored 102 points because of how aggressive they were on defense. This is the most fun team to watch in a long time for the Tennessee Lady Vols. Let's take wins out of it for a minute. Let's take wins out of it. I'm going to ask this poll question, and maybe it's blasphemous, but is this year's Lady Vols team the most fun to watch in history? And you guys can say, yes, I love this tempo. No, I prefer the champion. I prefer the national champions. All right. So maybe that's not going to be phrased right because people are going to say they prefer some other teams. But here's the truth of the matter with the Tennessee Lady Vols during the Pat Summitt years. And I don't blame Pat Summitt. I'd have done the same thing if I was Pat Summitt. This is what you do when you get those players. You play a more slow post basketball game, and you use your size and your elite players and elite stars to their advantage, exactly what South Carolina is doing now. Pat Summitt did that with defense and rebounding, so it won a lot. So yeah, that was fun to watch because they were winning a lot. But this team, if you don't have it at that level, you have to figure out a way to be different. And this team is being different. Kim Caldwell is focusing solely on pace, solely on tempo, solely on being aggressive, and she's creating controlled chaos. Now, she took a risk in the offseason. So here's how Kim Caldwell's system works. And I've talked to you guys about this before, but I'm going to say it again. Kim Caldwell at the smaller levels played a frenetic pace and did so with elite shooters. So she would have the best three-point shooting team in her conferences because they would always be wide open because of the pace they were playing at. The hard part is she didn't have the size to compete at the higher levels. So when she got to Tennessee, she had to get the exact same pace, but also do it with players of size. This year in the transfer portal, this all season, she added a bunch of new players. She went for the size and the athleticism over the three-point shooting. I said that was a risk. I think it turned out to be a smart move, and here's why. With the athleticism, you're still going to get those open looks because of the pace, and they're getting those open looks. And with the more open looks, the three-point shooting from players who weren't that efficient last year will get more efficient this year. It's not going to be great, but it'll be fine. The size, meanwhile, is what they need to stay competitive in these SEC games and hope they steal a few against elite teams, which I think they can do. Now, people are very upset that Tennessee is not yet in the top 25, but truth be told, they haven't played anybody yet. And I'm not so sure how caliber of a top 25 team they are this year, but they're recruiting very well, guys. They have 3 elite commitments for next year already. Kim Caldwell is getting the players she wants to run her system that do what she needs, because she needs size, athleticism, and shooting to win. I mean, I know that's like, okay, everybody wants size, athleticism, and shooting, but shooting is a big part of it. She needs them to be more reliable than the shooters she has. But for the time being, enjoy what you're watching, because what I will say is this is an underrated part. Going with the tempo the way she's going is going to make this team so exciting. It's going to put more fans in the seats, and it's going to give the Lady Vols a little bit more NIL money to work with on the recruiting trail. And that's what it's all about, because Danny White struck a bargain with Kim Caldwell. He got an up-and-comer who he didn't have to shell out a lot of money for. And at the same time, he's got a coach who's going to generate attention and interest early so she can generate more NIL money to be able to recruit top players. This was a brilliant hire. Kim Caldwell has got this team playing very well. They're one of the most fun teams to watch. They are now 5-0. And now they have a little bit of a break before they get set to face Florida State, which they're going to face on December the 4th. That is a week from today. They're going to face Florida State on December the 4th. That'll be their first real test. Florida State is receiving votes in the polls just as Tennessee is, but they're not in the top 25 yet. But after Florida State, 3 days after that, they play Iowa. Now it's not Caitlin Clark, Iowa, because Caitlin Clark's in the WNBA now, but that team is still ranked number 22. So they still have a fairly decent schedule. Out-of-conference schedule is not what you would want it to be this year. I'm just going to be honest. It's not what you would expect from a Tennessee standard. That's the one knock on Kim Caldwell. I'm not sure if she set this schedule, because you can do it a lot closer in women's college basketball. I will say, though, their conference schedule, they play Oklahoma, they play LSU twice, they play Texas, they play South Carolina, and they play Ole Miss, and they play Alabama and Kentucky. That is 8 games against top 25 teams, and that is, since they play LSU twice, that is 5 games against top 10 teams, as Oklahoma, South Carolina, LSU, and I would believe Texas are all top 10 teams. Not to mention they still have UConn non-conference. So it's not like they don't play anybody. They play UConn in a non-conference game in what could be a very exciting game. This Lady Vols team overall is incredibly exciting to watch. Going to talk a little bit more about them in a second. First, the show brought to you by Varner Ford.
Serve $29,946. Pre-owned 2024 Ford Maverick $39,990. 2023 Ford Expedition Platinum 4x4 $67,970. Pre-owned vehicles you can afford. Varner Ford, built for the game.
All right, our poll question: is this the Lady Vols team? Is this year's Lady Vols team the most fun to watch in history? Yes, I love this tempo. 70%. No, I prefer national champions. 30%. I'm with most of you guys. Yes, I love this tempo. I think the tempo will help bring fans in. Bringing fans in and bringing excitement will create more NIL money, and it'll create more buzz, and it'll be enough to make a splash this first year. And if the Lady Vols can make a splash and prove they're coming back, it'll make Kim Caldwell a hot commodity because of the success she's already had, and that will lead to them recruiting at a very high level, bringing in top 10, top 12 recruiting classes consistently. Women's basketball is still a recruiting sport, guys. Actually, more than a lot of other sports, believe it or not. Women's basketball is still, it's not back in the old days where if you got one player, you were going to win national champions. But if you get 3, you will. And a lot of teams do get the 3 to 5. I mean, when UConn was dominating with Gino Auriemma, they had a monopoly on recruiting, guys. They got everybody. They don't have that anymore. And you're seeing it. Dawn Staley has more of a monopoly on it than anybody. So, truth be told, this is a great situation for the Lady Vols to be in. Everything's exciting about this program. And I think people should be very thrilled about how things are turning out. I think the Lady Vols are going to be one of the most exciting teams to watch this year. What that turns into, I don't know. I think a reasonable goal is to try to get to the Sweet 16. I think they can do that with this tempo, but if they don't freak out. Okay. Kim Caldwell is doing for the Lady Vols kind of what Bruce Pearl did for Tennessee. The difference is Tennessee was a down in the dumps, apathetic program in men's basketball that nobody cared about. The Lady Vols, relative to other women's basketball programs, are a team that a lot of people care about and a lot of people want to see do well. The thing is, they need a new life injected into them. So that's where the Bruce Pearl part comes, because Kim Caldwell can inject new life. I don't know if Kim Caldwell can be the cheerleader Bruce Pearl was, because she seems a little bit more stoic, a little bit more calm when she focuses on coaching, whereas Bruce Pearl was going to do stuff like paint his chest and all that fun stuff. Kim Caldwell's obviously not going to do that. But at the same time, the actual style of play is going to generate a lot of interest. And I think because of that, this was a great hire. Winning 102-50, scoring over 100 points in 3 of 5 games, and scoring 90 points in 4 of 5 games. And in the 5th game, they only won. They scored 89 points. It's so impressive. But again, they struggled with Liberty. They struggled with MTSU. They only won those games by 16 and 14, respectively. You're going to see some ugly, sloppy games from this team. Let's talk. It's controlled chaos, guys. It's controlled chaos. But because this is a young team, because this is not exactly the type of team Kim Caldwell wants, and it's their first year playing together, it's sometimes going to be sloppy chaos. It's sometimes going to be out of control chaos. So just temper your expectations and expect a fun season, not necessarily a season that is going to generate the type of success you want it to have. That comes later, but recruiting is going to do it for you. I promise.